Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've worked in forest conservation for more than a decade now. 10 years of hiking trails, measuring trunks, and tagging wildlife. I've slept under the stars, weathered storms in a tent, even faced off with a moose once. Point is, I've always felt safe in the woods, at peace even, like the forest, and I had an unspoken agreement. I respect it. It respects me. But that changed last October on a quiet solo trip to the Chugach Mountains in Alaska. I was sent out to update tree boundary markers before the snow rolled in and seal the place off for winter. It was meant to be a simple 2-day hike in, hike out assignment. The kind of job I could do blindfolded. That's what I told myself, anyway. The first day went smooth, too smooth in hindsight. Perfect weather, crisp air, bird song echoing through the trees. The kind of day that makes you feel lucky to be alive. I remember thinking I'd take my time. No rush. I even left my sat phone in the truck, figuring I'd be back before dark. By late afternoon, though, I noticed something strange. The forest had grown quiet. No birds, no insects, just wind whistling through the trees, or what I thought was wind. I didn't pay much attention to it at first. I was finishing up marking a patch of evergreens when my GPS glitched out. Screen froze, then shut off. Dead battery. Rookie mistake, yeah, but I knew the terrain, or I thought I did. I packed up and started back, trying to retrace my steps. That's when I heard the whistle. 3 notes. Low, high, low again. Soft, melodic, almost like a lullaby. I stopped walking, listened. It came again. Same pattern, same eerie tune. I called out, hello, anyone there? More annoyed than scared. The whistle stopped. Silence dropped around me like a curtain. Heavy, pressing. Then the whistle came again. Behind me. Closer. I turned fast, heart picking up speed. Nothing there. Just trees and long, dragging shadows. I looked around for any sign of a person, but the forest felt different, off, like the trees had inched closer, their trunks packed tighter than I remembered. I picked up my pace. Not running, not yet, but walking fast. I needed to get back to the ridge. That's where the trail forked toward the service road. But the woods didn't want to let me out. No matter which direction I turned, I couldn't find a ridge. The landscape was shifting. I swear to God it was. Paths that weren't there before twisted under my boots. Familiar landmarks vanished. I checked my compass, needle spinning like mad. The forest didn't want me to leave. Then the whistle came again, louder this time. And this time, something else followed it. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Just outside my vision. I spun in circles, chest heaving, eyes wide. The whistle played again, and I swear it was inside my head now. Like it was being whispered just behind my ear. I ran. Branches whipped my face. Roots tried to grab my boots. The trees felt alive, like they were leaning in to watch me panic. Then I saw it. Something white moving between the trees. Not running, gliding. It disappeared behind a trunk before I could make out any details. I stumbled into a clearing, gasping. That's when I saw it. Hanging from a low branch, swaying slightly in the dead still air, was a stick figure made of bones and twine. Human bones. Not carved. Not fake. Real. The rib cage had been wired with rusted metal, the skull cracked and hollow. The twine was knotted into symbols, sigils, maybe. I didn't recognize them. Beneath it, the ground was scraped clear, and in the dirt, like it had been clawed in by fingers or nails, were 5 words. Keep following the song. I stared at those words, heart pounding like it wanted out of my chest. The whistle returned, right then, right above me. I looked up. Something moved in the tree canopy. Long limbs, pale, sagging skin, no face, just a smooth, flat surface. But it whistled. 3 notes. Low, high, low. I don't remember screaming, but my throat was raw the next day. So I must have. All I know is I ran. I ran harder than I ever have, crashing through the forest like a wild animal. No sense of direction, just the need to escape. I blacked out somewhere along the way. When I woke up, it was morning. Cold sunlight filtered through the trees. My clothes were torn, caked in mud. My mouth was dry. My limbs ached like I'd been hit by a truck. I was lying on the edge of the main highway, face down in the muck. My truck was a mile up the road, untouched. I climbed inside, locked the doors, and sat there shaking for what felt like hours. When I got back to town, I didn't tell anyone what happened. How could I? Hey, I got stalked by something in the woods that plays lullabies and builds stick figures out of human bones. Yeah, no thanks. But I haven't gone back. Not there. Not to that part of the Chugach. And I never go into the forest alone anymore. Ever. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear that whistle. In dreams. In wind that doesn't quite sound right. My dog growls at the window when it happens. The trees outside my house sway harder than the others on the block. And once, just once, I found a tiny figure on my porch, made of twigs and knotted string. No one believed me when I told them it wasn't mine. They laughed it off, but I didn't touch it. I burned it, because deep down, I know the truth. The forest let me go that night, but it hasn't forgotten me. Story 2. I was 17 this summer happened. My cousin Jace and I had planned the trip for months. Just 2 guys escaping the mess of everyday life. No cell phones, no social media, no parents breathing down our necks. Just us, the Sawtooth Mountains, and enough freeze-dried meals to survive the weekend. We were trying to be men, I guess. Real men. Out there with our tents and gear and our overconfidence. The first day was normal. Almost boring, even. We hiked in about 10 miles, crossed a shallow creek, and set up camp near a grove of pines. The air smelled like sap and cold water, the kind of clean that makes your lungs feel brand new. We talked for hours about school, about girls, about how we were going to start our own YouTube channel when we got back. Dumb stuff, harmless stuff. The sun dipped below the tree line, and shadows stretched long and thin across the ground. The forest at night is something else entirely. It feels alive in a way it doesn't during the day. The creaks of branches, the distant rustling, the occasional crack of something stepping on dry twigs. You tell yourself it's animals. Just animals. That night, we turned in early. Jace fell asleep quick. I stayed up a bit, listening to the wind threading through the trees. I don't know what time it was when I finally dozed off, but I woke up to crunching. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Not the quick scampering of a deer. Not the erratic dance of a raccoon. These were careful, even, human. I sat up and looked at Jace. He was already awake, staring at the ceiling of the tent like he was trying to see through it. His finger was pressed to his lips. The steps circled the tent. Once, twice, then again. I held my breath. Every sound outside seemed amplified, like the forest was leaning in to listen. And then came the scrape. Something dragged across the nylon of our tent wall. A long, slow, metallic sound, like a knife being pulled across skin. Not fast, not rushed, intentional, calculated. I stared at Jace. He mouthed, "What the hell?" But I had no answer. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. The air inside the tent had gone stale, hot with fear. The scraping stopped, then silence. We waited. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. We didn't sleep, not a wink, just stared at the dark fabric, waiting for something else. It never came. By the time the sun began to filter through the tent seams, we were already packing, shoving things into our bags with no care for order or weight. We just needed to go. Get out. We hit the trail fast, barely stopping to catch our breath. But 2 miles in, Jay stopped dead in his tracks. "Dude," he said, pointing at the dirt. "Those are ours, right?" He meant the boot prints. Our prints. From the day before. Only they weren't. They were fresh. The dirt still loose at the edges, like someone had walked behind us, maybe just an hour before. Same boot size as ours. Same tread pattern. We followed the prints back along the path for a while, and that's when we saw it. Hanging from a low branch, about 10 feet above the ground, was a camera. A small black camcorder, taped to a branch and pointed directly at the flat patch where our tent had been. It was rigged up with fishing line, tied between trees like some sort of crude perimeter trap. Jay stared at it and whispered, "What the hell is this?" There was no label, no case, just that one camera. It was still recording. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't just some hiker messing around. This was planned, and we had been the stars of the show. We didn't touch the camera. We didn't even look at it again. We just ran until our legs ached, until our breath came in hot clouds, until the parking lot finally came into view, and we saw our beat-up Subaru, still sitting where we left it. We drove straight to the ranger station, hands still shaking. We told the guy behind the desk everything. He didn't say much, just nodded, made notes, asked for the trail name. He called in a team to go check it out. That was the last we heard. When they got to the site, the camera was gone. The prints were gone. No fishing line. No sign anyone had ever been there. They told us maybe it was some kids playing a prank. Or maybe we'd imagined it. Sleep deprived. Overexcited. You know, young brains working overtime. But we know what we saw. We heard the footsteps. We saw the camera. We were being watched. The worst part, whoever was, they knew those woods better than we did. Much better. They waited until we were deep enough in that no one could hear us scream. And maybe, just maybe, they're still out there, waiting for someone else to come looking for peace in the woods, waiting with a camera and a knife. Story 3. My grandfather, a man of few words and fewer smiles, used to sit out on the porch in the evenings, sipping black coffee and staring into the tree line behind his house. When I was a kid, I'd sit on the steps, hoping for one of his stories, the kind that always ended with a warning and left the woods darker than they were before. One of those stories, the one he whispered when the fireflies came out, was about the moss men. They live where man ain't supposed to tread, he'd say, voice gravel thick. deep in the forgotten woods, covered in moss, skin like bark, eyes blacker than sin. Not evil, but old, older than the trees. They watch, they wait, and if you wonder where they sleep, they don't forget. I used to laugh at it. Thought it was some backwoods ghost story meant to keep me from running off into the forest at night. I don't laugh anymore. 3 years ago, I went hiking alone in Tillamook Forest. Just needed to get away. Clean air, quiet trails, no one asking if I was doing okay after the breakup. I wanted to be alone with my thoughts, away from people, away from the noise. The kind of silence that presses on your ears until all you can hear is your own heartbeat. I parked off the main road and followed a path I'd mapped out from an old forest guide. The first few hours were nothing special. Pine needles crunching underfoot, squirrels darting through underbrush, distant birdsong. But then, somewhere around noon, I saw it. An old signpost, half-eaten by ivy. The words had faded to barely more than a ghost, but I could just make them out under the grime and rot. Old Garrison Trail. My heart kicked a little harder. That name, Garrison. That was the one my granddad used to mention when he spoke of the forgotten path. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, probably. Or maybe I just wanted to feel close to the old man again. He'd passed 2 years before, and I never got the chance to ask if the Moss Men story was real or just something he conjured for more memories and too much coffee. I veered off my route and followed the Garrison Trail. It was barely a trail at all, just a suggestion of one. Branches clawed at my jacket, and thorns snagged my jeans. I walked for what felt like hours, deeper into a part of the forest where the light changed. Greener, thicker, like the sun had to fight its way through. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was just a tree. Tall, still, draped in hanging moss. It stood maybe 30 feet away, between two thick old trunks. I stopped walking, squinted. The moss on its limbs swayed slightly, but there was no wind. Then it moved. Slow, deliberate, not like a man, more like a shadow remembering how to be solid. Its limbs were too long, bending in ways no human limbs should. Its body was coated in moss and lichen, and beneath that, what looked like bark, cracked and dark with age. In its face, there was no face, just a broad head, featureless except for 2 holes where the eyes should be. Not eyes, though, not really, just deep, endless darkness, like it was staring at me from somewhere beyond. I couldn't speak. Could barely breathe. My legs wanted to run, but my body refused to listen. The thing raised one long arm and pointed. Not at me. Beside me. I turned my head slowly. There was a massive tree, thick and rotting. Its trunk split like it had been struck by lightning. Vines covered its base, and the ground around it looked softer somehow, like fresh-turned soil. Something inside me screamed to run, but something else, a quieter voice, maybe my grandfather's, whispered, "Look." I stepped toward the tree. The air smelled like wet stone and something sweet gone bad. I knelt down and brushed the dirt with my fingers. It crumbled like ash, and underneath, bones. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, tangled, old, yellowed. Some small, animal, others too big. A human skull tilted upward at me, jaw gaping open like it had been frozen mid-scream. Another beside it, and another. I scrambled back, heart hammering. When I looked up, the Moss Man was gone. Just gone. The forest was silent. Too silent. No birds. No wind, just the sound of my own breath. I ran. I didn't even care what direction. I just ran. Branches whipped my face, thorns tore at my skin, and something deep inside me screamed that if I slowed down, if I looked back, I wouldn't make it out. It was dusk when I found the road again. I collapsed by the shoulder, gasping, shaking, my shirt soaked with sweat and my hands streaked with dirt and blood. I didn't even realize I'd been crying until I got to my car and saw my face in the side mirror. I didn't tell anyone. Not then. Who would believe me? But that night, I dreamed of him. He stood at the edge of my bed, silent, unmoving, watching, just watching. I woke up with a start, drenched in sweat, heart thudding like a war drum. And then I saw it. Moss. On my bedroom floor. Wet footprints, bare, human-shaped, leading from the window to the foot of my bed. I don't hike anymore. I moved out of state, far from the woods. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is still, I hear a rustle outside my window, like moss brushing glass. And I remember what my grandfather said. They don't forget, and neither will I.